The knock came exactly at 21:17, which was irritating because it split his evening neatly in half. He had just reached the point where the kettle began to sound impatient, and he was deciding whether to answer it sternly or pretend not to hear it at all, when the sound repeated, precise, measured, almost polite. It wasn't the knock of a neighbor who had lost their keys, nor the aggressive rapping of a courier who wanted to be done with the day. It sounded rehearsed, like someone who had practiced knocking in front of a mirror. He opened the door because curiosity has always been stronger than common sense. The woman standing there looked human enough to pass any casual glance, and yet not quite human enough to settle the mind. She was tall, calm, and carried herself as if gravity were optional. Her eyes were steady, reflective in a way that suggested they processed more data than emotion, and her ears, long, elegant, tapering slightly upward, were unmistakably not something Earth biology had signed off on. She smiled with the careful confidence of someone delivering news they knew would detonate on arrival. "Human," she said, testing the word as if it were a title. "I've come to your home because our daughter wants to meet you." He stared at her, waiting for the punchline to arrive late and apologize. None did. His brain performed several emergency shutdowns, rebooted, and then settled on the safest response available. "You have the wrong apartment," he said, even though he was standing in it. She glanced past him, scanning the room with a subtle flicker of light passing over her pupils, as if invisible instruments were humming to life. "No," she replied. "The spatial markers are correct. Also, your kitchen plan is dying." "That's not relevant," he said automatically, offended on behalf of the plant. She stepped forward without waiting for permission, paused, and removed her footwear with exaggerated care. "It is considered respectful," she explained, "and also your floor appears emotionally attached to cleanliness." He decided, in that moment, that panic could wait. Confusion was already doing an excellent job. "You can't just show up," he said. "And you definitely can't say things like that. I don't have a daughter. I barely have matching socks." The woman tilted her head, the way one might when encountering a particularly stubborn equation. "That is statistically irrelevant," she said gently. "Reproduction does not require organizational skills." She took a small device from her wrist, no larger than a watch, and it projected a faint lattice of light into the air. Symbols, star maps, genetic spirals that twisted slowly, patiently. Science fiction, his mind supplied helpfully, as if labeling it might make it leave. "Several Earth years ago," she continued, "we met. You believed it was chance. It was not. You believed I was human. That was optimistic." He felt the room tilt just slightly. Somewhere inside him a memory stirred, an accent that never quite placed itself, a laugh that came a beat too late, a goodbye that felt unfinished. He opened his mouth to protest, to deny, to demand an explanation that made sense, but all that came out was, "Does our daughter also think my plant is dying?" The woman's smile widened, just a fraction. "She insists it is merely depressed," she said. "She is very much like you." He closed the door behind her because leaving it open felt like an invitation to explain things to the neighbors, and he did not have the energy to tell Mrs. Klein from 3B that an alien had arrived to discuss unexpected parenthood. The silence that followed was thick, stretched tight between them, until the kettle clicked off in quiet surrender. She looked at it thoughtfully. "Your heating vessel has completed its task." "It boils water," he said. "It's not proud of it." She accepted the mug he handed her, sniffed it once, and then drank with careful precision. "Bitter," she observed. "Is this a defense mechanism?" "It's coffee." "Ah, a cultural endurance ritual." He sat across from her, arms crossed, posture defensive in the way of a man who had once read that confidence could be faked by folding yourself into a chair like a barricade. "You don't get to walk in here and rewrite my life with a sentence," he said. "If this is a joke, it's not landing." She nodded slowly. Humor calibration acknowledged. However, the data remains unchanged. She tapped the device on her wrist again, and this time the light did not fill the room but focused between them, forming a hovering strand of symbols that pulsed softly. It adjusted itself, flickering until human letters replaced alien script. His name appeared. Beneath it, a genetic sequence spun lazily, like it had all the time in the universe. He leaned forward despite himself. That could be fake. It could, she agreed. But then so could gravity, and yet you remain seated. He sighed, rubbing his face. I don't remember agreeing to anything like this. You didn't, she said. Consent was obtained through incomplete information. On your side. That's called lying. She considered this. On my world it is called strategic omission. We have workshops. He laughed once, sharp and surprised, then stopped as the sound echoed back at him, fragile. You're telling me there's a child out there who thinks I'm. What a myth. No, she said. She thinks you are inefficient but potentially kind. That's worse. The woman's expression softened, not dramatically, but enough to matter. She watches recordings of Earth families. She believes fathers are prone to mistakes but capable of loyalty. She finds this reassuring. He stared into his coffee, watching the surface ripple slightly as if reacting to his mood. And you? He asked quietly. I believe, she said after a pause, that you deserve to know the truth before the universe forces introductions. Something hummed faintly in the walls, a resonance he felt more than heard. She glanced upward. Temporal drift, she said apologetically. Being near you destabilizes probability. Figures, he muttered. She smiled again, smaller this time. You were always statistically unlikely. He didn't realize how quiet his life had been until it was interrupted by the soft chime coming from her wrist. The sound was gentle, almost apologetic, like a doorbell that knew it was about to cause problems. She raised her arm and the air between them shimmered, resolving into a projection that hovered uncertainly, as if waiting for permission to exist. A small figure appeared, sitting cross-legged on what looked suspiciously like a floating chair. The child's hair drifted upward in defiance of gravity, and her ears, long like her mother's, twitched as she concentrated on something just out of frame. She was talking rapidly, her voice spilling out in a language that bent syllables in ways his ears struggled to follow. That's her, the woman said unnecessarily. The girl stopped mid-sentence and leaned closer to the projection. Her eyes widened. Is that him? She asked, now in accented but enthusiastic English. He looks softer than I expected. He choked on his coffee. I'm right here. I know, she said brightly. That's why I switched languages. Mother says it's polite not to confuse your genetic contributors. Your mother has a gift for understatement, he said. The girl grinned, clearly pleased. You're funnier in real time. The recordings don't capture timing well. Recordings? Yes, she said. Mother showed me fragments of your culture, sitcoms, interviews. A man once slipped on ice and pretended it was intentional. I think about that often. He looked helplessly at the woman. She's been studying us. She has been studying you, the woman corrected. Specifically, how humans handle disappointment with humor. That explains a lot, he said. The girl tilted her head. Are you disappointed? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I think I'm processing. She nodded solemnly. That is acceptable. I process by rearranging star charts. Everyone copes differently. There was a pause, awkward but warm. The child leaned back, chair spinning lazily. I wanted to meet you because I was curious, she said. And because the council thinks you're a variable. That sounds dangerous. It is, she said cheerfully. They don't like variables, but I do. Variables change outcomes. The woman watched them, silent now, as if afraid to interrupt whatever fragile connection was forming. The girl studied his face again. You look tired, she said. Do you rest enough? Probably not. Mother says that means you care about things that don't care back. He laughed despite himself. She says that. She says many things. Some of them are warnings. The projection flickered, time pulling gently at its edges. I have to go, the girl said, suddenly serious. But I'll see you again. Yes. He hesitated only a second. Yes. She smiled, satisfied, and vanished in a soft collapse of light. The silence returned, altered now, heavier but fuller. He looked at the woman. "So," he said, "apparently I'm a variable." She inclined her head. "I always suspected." Sleep became a theoretical concept some time after the projection faded. He lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, which had developed a faint, pulsing glow, because the woman's presence continued to irritate reality in subtle ways. The glow shifted colors every few seconds like it couldn't decide what mood it was in. "This is not normal," he said into the darkness. "No," she replied from the chair across the room, where she sat perfectly still, eyes open. "This is adaptive discomfort. That sounds like something people say right before charging you for therapy." She tilted her head. "We charge per emotional cycle. You are currently on your fourth." He sat up. "You're not even pretending this is casual anymore, are you?" "There is nothing casual about interstellar parenthood," she said calmly, "especially when multiple governing bodies are monitoring probability fluctuations around you." That got his attention. Monitoring how? The faint hum in the walls deepened, as if the building itself were listening. Symbols briefly surfaced along the air near the ceiling, then sank away again like shy fish. She followed his gaze. "Ah, they are observing more actively now." "Who is they?" "The Council, the Lineage Authority, a subcommittee dedicated entirely to unintended outcomes." He rubbed his eyes. "Of course there is." "They are concerned," she continued, "that contact with you may influence the child's development in unpredictable ways." "I already did that," he said. "I said yes to seeing her again. That is why they are concerned." A soft vibration rolled through the room, rattling a spoon in the sink. She raised her wrist and a projection bloomed, rows of shifting equations, probabilities folding into one another, branching futures blinking in and out of existence. Some showed him older, some showed him absent, some showed things he refused to look at too closely. "Those all depend on me?" he asked. "On you choosing," she said, "or refusing to." He laughed quietly. "No pressure." "Minimal," she agreed. "They considered erasing your memory instead." He stopped laughing. That was on the table. It was briefly a chair. He stood and paced, stepping carefully as if the floor might suddenly become optional. "So what happens now? Do I get summoned, tested, probed?" She allowed herself a pause. "Not probed," she said. "I negotiated firmly." "Thank you." "For now," she continued, "they will observe, they will argue, they will attempt to define you." "Good luck with that." She looked at him then, really looked, and something unguarded crossed her expression. "You have already altered the projections," she said softly. "They are messier." He stopped pacing. "Is that bad?" "For them," she said, "yes. For us—" She hesitated. Then with the faintest smile, "Messy is where growth occurs." The ceiling glow finally dimmed, as if reality had decided to take a break. He sank back onto the couch, exhausted but oddly steady. "You know," he said, "my life was very quiet yesterday." "I know," she replied. "That is why it was selected." He closed his eyes. Somewhere across the galaxy, a child rearranged stars and waited for a variable to decide who he would become. Morning arrived reluctantly, as if the sun itself needed time to accept the situation. He knew it was morning because his alarm went off, confused but determined, and because the woman finally closed her eyes for exactly 12 seconds. "That was resting," she said when she noticed him watching. "Efficient." "You slept for less time than it takes me to decide what to wear," he said. "You choose clothing emotionally," she replied. "It extends the process." He made toast. The toaster objected by launching one slice directly onto the counter. She watched this with interest. "Your technology is hostile." "It's defensive," he said. "It's learned from me." They ate in a silence that no longer felt dangerous. Outside, the city went on pretending nothing had shifted at a cosmic level. Cars passed. Someone argued loudly on a phone. Reality, apparently, had a strong commitment to routine. She broke the silence. "You are considering refusal." He didn't deny it. I'm considering everything. I'm very good at considering. Yes, she said. Avoidance through contemplation, a human specialty. He sighed. I don't know how to be what she expects. She does not expect competence, the woman said. She expects presence, also jokes. She rates humor highly. That explains why she tolerated me for more than 30 seconds. A faint pulse ran through her wrist device. She glanced at it and frowned. The council has begun drafting contingencies. That sounds ominous. It usually is, she agreed. They believe you may destabilize her future. He raised an eyebrow. By being terrible. By being meaningful. He leaned back in his chair. You could have raised her without me. I did, she said simply. But she noticed the absence. She asked why half of her origin was a mystery when the universe contains detailed records of collapsing stars. That's fair. The room shifted subtly, as if listening again. The air thickened with probability, branching unseen paths brushing past one another. He felt it now, that strange pressure, like standing too close to something enormous and patient. What happens if I say no? He asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was steady. She adapts, I adapt. The universe adjusts. Something is lost, but it will not break. And if I say yes? Her mouth curved just barely. Then nothing follows the expected path. He laughed under his breath. I always hated expectations. She stood, stepping closer, not touching him but near enough that he felt the warmth of her presence bend the moment. Whatever you choose, she said, will echo. That is the nature of variables. He looked at his hands, ordinary hands, suddenly implicated in galactic outcomes. I can't promise I'll be good at this. You will fail often, she said. Spectacularly. That's reassuring. But she added, you will try. That is why she wanted to meet you. Outside, the sun finally committed, flooding the room with light. He took a breath, long and careful, like someone stepping toward the edge of something vast. Tell the council, he said, that the variable is still thinking. She smiled. They will hate that. He smiled back just a little. The decision did not arrive with fireworks or declarations. It came quietly sometime after lunch, when he realized he had stopped imagining ways out and started imagining schedules. Not heroic ones, small human things, calls at inconvenient hours, awkward silences stretched across light years, birthdays he would inevitably forget and then overcompensate for. The woman noticed the shift before he said anything. She always did. Probability settled around him differently now, less frantic, more deliberate. The air felt steadier, as if the universe had exhaled and decided to wait. He stood by the window while she activated the device on her wrist. The projection bloomed more clearly this time, sharper, stronger, anchored by choice rather than curiosity. Their daughter appeared again, upside down at first, then righting herself with a small laugh. I recalibrated the angle, she said. Gravity is optional where I am. Figures, he replied. I struggle with it here. She studied his face, serious in the way only children can manage. You decided, she said. Yes, he said, surprised by how easily the word came. I'm still inefficient. That hasn't changed. That's acceptable, she said. So am I. They talked, not about destiny or councils or genetic legacies, but about small things. About the plant, which she insisted only needed encouragement. About her favorite constellation, which he pretended to recognize. About jokes that didn't quite translate and were funnier because of it. When the connection ended, it did not feel like loss. It felt like continuity. The woman deactivated the device. The council has updated your classification, she said. That sounds expensive. You are now listed as a voluntary constant, she replied. It confuses them. Good. She prepared to leave. Not dramatically. No glowing portals. Just the quiet certainty of someone who knows where she is going. At the door she paused. You have altered the outcome, she said. Not by force, by consistency. He nodded. Turns out I'm good at showing up. She smiled, unguarded now.